भरा हुआ।
We're getting reports that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has landed in France for his first bilateral visit to a European country in his second term as Prime Minister. And we'll be showing you live visuals as and when we receive those visuals. From there, the Prime Minister will be heading straight for a bilateral meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. That will be followed by a signing of agreements and press statements between the two leaders. Tomorrow, too, the engagements will continue in France of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, where he will be meeting the Prime Minister of France. He will also be addressing the Indian community there. And then the Prime Minister will also dedicate a memorial in honor of those Indians who lost their lives in two Air India crashes in 1950 and 1966. This is going to be an extremely important visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to France, because India and France are strategic partners since 2008. That strategic partnership was signed in 2008, and in fact France was the first country that India ever had a strategic partnership with, and the first country to have a strategic dialogue with. There are a lot of expectations from this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You would remember that French President Emmanuel Macron had come to India in March 2018. That visit was extremely rich in terms of strategic content. It is expected that this visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to France is going to be extremely important as well. This is the bilateral component of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France, because the Prime Minister heads from here to the UAE and then to the Kingdom of Bahrain, and then comes back to France to attend the G7 summit, which he'll attend in the capacity of a special invitee to the outreach session of the G7 summit in Biarritz, where the focus would be on preserving and protection of biodiversity, besides of course reducing inequalities in terms of income and gender inequities. So now Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be deboarding from Air India One, and there are a lot of leaders from France who've come to receive Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the airport. This is going to be a historic visit for Prime Minister Narendra Modi, because this is going to be his first bilateral visit to France or to any European country in his second term as Prime Minister. Prime Minister, in fact, in his first term too had gone to France, the first country among the European countries, or the Prime Minister had gone then as well. And now Prime Minister Narendra Modi arriving in France for the bilateral component of the visit. Prime Minister from here will be heading later to UAE and the Kingdom of Bahrain, but this visit is expected to yield a lot of outcomes in terms of the strategic partnership, because there are expectations that there could be talks between the two sides insofar as the defense sector is concerned, or even maritime security is concerned, because it is expected that the two countries may look at further negotiations on the Rafale contract beyond, of course, the 36 that India and France have already agreed upon. The delivery of the first Rafale aircraft will be done to India sometime in the third week of September 2019, 19th September 2019 to be precise. And then the 35 more Rafale jets would be delivered to India over a period of time, over 3 years, from September 2019. And then it is expected that France may well offer another round of Rafale aircraft to India, because the Indian Air Force is facing shortages insofar as its fleet is concerned, and would want more fighter jets like Rafale to be added to its fleet. Besides that, there are some satellites that could well be launched in future for the purpose of maritime surveillance in the Indian Ocean region. And those are just some of the pacts that could well be signed between India and France. There is a pact that is expected to be signed on vocational training as well as skill development between India and France, and there's a lot more in the offing. Our correspondent Shailendra Mishra is joining us. Shailendra, the visit of Emmanuel Macron in March 2018 was extremely rich in strategic content. We know that France was the first country with which India ever signed a strategic partnership with. Considering that, how significant could this visit of PM Modi to France be?
बिल्कुल मुनमुन, बहुत महत्वपूर्ण यात्रा है प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की। आप इस वक्त सीधी तस्वीरें देख रहे होंगे। हम जानते हैं कि द्विपक्षीय बातचीत होनी है। सबसे पहले फ्रांस के राष्ट्रपति के साथ प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी की बैठक होगी, और इसके बाद शिष्टमंडल की वार्ता होगी। और हम जानते हैं कि कल जो 1950 और 60 के दशक में जो दो विमान हादसे हुए थे, उनमें मारे गए लोगों के याद में जो लोग मारे गए थे, उनकी याद में जो मेमोरियल बनाया गया, उसका अनावरण भी प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी करेंगे और सीधे तौर पर जो यहाँ फ्रांस में जो भारतीय समुदाय के लोग रहते हैं उनको भी संबोधित करेंगे। हम जानते हैं कि तमाम ऐसे क्षेत्रों में जिसमें पिछले 4-5 वर्षों में महत्वपूर्ण प्रगति हुई है, चाहे वो डिफेंस कॉर्पोरेशन का क्षेत्र हो, अंतरिक्ष में सहयोग की बात हो, या फिर उससे भी आगे जाकर जो नए नए क्षेत्रों में भारत और फ्रांस के बीच सहयोग बढ़ा है। खासतौर पर क्लाइमेट चेंज को लेकर जो इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस हुआ, उसमें हमने देखा कि किस तरह से भारत और फ्रांस सौर ऊर्जा के क्षेत्र में आपसी सहयोग को आगे बढ़ा रहे हैं और अब इस सहयोग को और आगे बढ़ाए जाने की ओर प्रयास किया जा रहा है, जिससे कि जो बाकी देशों में है, जो भारत और फ्रांस से इतर तमाम अफ्रीकी देशों में भारत और फ्रांस इस दिशा में अपना योगदान दे सके। इसके साथ ही साथ चाहे डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी का क्षेत्र हो या फिर मैरीटाइम सिक्योरिटी की बात हो, नौवन का क्षेत्र हो, इन सब में दरअसल भारत और फ्रांस के बीच जो सहयोग है वो बढ़ा है। हम जानते हैं कि बड़ी संख्या में भारतीय छात्र पढ़ने आते हैं फ्रांस में और अब इसमें बहुत सारी सहूलतें दी गई हैं दोनों देशों के प्रयासों के बाद। और अब ये लक्ष्य है कि 10,000 छात्र हर साल फ्रांस पढ़ने के लिए आए हैं। मौजूदा समय में करीब 12,000 छात्र यहाँ पर पढ़ाई के लिए भारत से आते हैं। तो ऐसे में एक बड़ा जंप से कह सकते हैं कि भारतीय छात्रों का आने वाले दिनों में, महीनों में, वर्षों में देखने को मिल सकता है। तो निश्चित तौर पर तमाम अहम क्षेत्रों में जो बातचीत होनी है, तमाम अहम क्षेत्रों में किस तरह सहयोग को आगे बढ़ाया जाए और जो फैसले 2015 से लेकर 2015 से लेकर अब तक जो तमाम अहम मौकों पर जो अहम फैसले लिए गए, उनमें जो उसे लागू किया गया तो किस तरह से अलग अलग आयामों में और विस्तार दिया जा सकता है, इसको लेकर बातचीत हो सकती है। जानते हैं कि अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर कई ऐसे मुद्दे हैं, कई ऐसी चुनौतियां हैं जिसमें भारत और फ्रांस समान विचार रखते हैं, चाहे वो आतंकवाद के खिलाफ।
Right, Shailendra, hold your thoughts. Prime Minister Narendra Modi deboarding from Air India One for the bilateral component of his visit to France. He will soon be meeting the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, and after that we'll see how key agreements will be signed between India and France, and there will be press statements that will be issued. Before that, delegation level talks also will take place between India and France. Tomorrow would be Prime Minister's second day in France, where the Prime Minister will be meeting with the Prime Minister of France, and he will be addressing the Indian community in France. There is a sizable Indian community there of over 1 lakh people who reside there. There is already an increase in the number of visa applications from India as well. There's an increase in the number of students from India who visit France for higher studies. All that shows that the people-to-people connect and contact is only growing over the period of time between India and France. That shows the relationship is strong in terms of strategic partnership and also in terms of people-to-people ties. Prime Minister Narendra Modi in France now for the bilateral component of his visit to France. He'll be coming to France once again after he goes to UAE and the Kingdom of Bahrain, because his second leg of his visit to France would be to attend the G7 summit in Biarritz in the capacity of a special invitee for the outreach session. He was extended this invitation by the President of France, Emmanuel Macron. The strategic partnership between India and France dates back to 2008. Since then, it's been around 11 years. And like our correspondent Shailendra was also telling us, that there is a lot of convergence insofar as global issues are concerned between India and France, because India and France were founding members of the International Solar Alliance. There was an ISA founding summit that was co-hosted by India and France in New Delhi. And on the issue of terrorism as well, France has been a steadfast supporter and partner of India, because when the issue came up of a global listing of Maulana Masood Azhar, the chief of JEM, in the UN, then France played a key role in ensuring that the UN listed Masood Azhar as a terrorist. There were national actions also that France had taken against Masood Azhar. Masood Azhar was listed as a global terrorist by France earlier and later by the UN. In the context of the NSG also, there is consistent support that France has been giving to India, even trying to build support within the nuclear suppliers group for India's membership. Time and again, France has reiterated that France supports India's bid for permanent membership of the United Nations Security Council. So on a whole lot of issues. There is convergence. Besides that, when in March 2018, Emmanuel Macron, the French president, came to India, we saw how there were two special joint statements that were released. One in the Indo-Pacific region for strategic partnership, and the other for strategic partnership insofar as space is concerned. So we are seeing that over a period of time, this relationship or partnership between India and France is getting richer in terms of strategic content. We are going to see a lot more happen in terms of counterterrorism, maritime surveillance, even digital cooperation, because there could be pacts that may well be signed in the spheres of artificial intelligence or supercomputing, that is high performance computing. Besides that, there is more that one can expect in the field of education, skill development, vocational training. And besides that, we expect that in the field of cyber terrorism also, India and